We are here today to honor my mother, Ruby McWilliams. She was the firstborn on June 11, 1932, of Lawrence and Esther Toman at home in Denver Township, Richland County. She was raised in that home as a child of a hardworking farming family. She later was blessed with a brother and two sisters. Ruby attended a one-room schoolhouse and graduated from Noble High School in 1950. Her Aunt Mabel introduced her to the neighbor's youngest brother. He was a strapping young man with a beautiful head of hair, Hilbert Edison McWilliams. They were married about 6 months later on November 3rd, 1953. She did not know how to drive, so Dad soon taught her. Aunt Nancy recalled one time when Mom had purchased a whole chicken to bake. She did not know that store-bought chickens had livers and gizzards inside the chicken in a little wax bag. So she baked it with those items still inside. Country chickens are very different than city chickens. On September 20th, 1955, they were blessed with their firstborn son, Tony Lynn, who fought all the way and took 3 shifts of nurses and forceps to arrive. The day after Christmas, 1958, they were blessed again. And although I tried to come on Christmas Day, I was delayed by 1 hour and 25 minutes. This child was not going to take 3 shifts to arrive, though, but only 25 minutes after arriving at the hospital. I was so much more cooperative than my big brother. As a little boy, Tony really liked to challenge my mom at times. I remember her chasing him out of the house with a switch or something. He also liked to throw things, especially rocks. One time he threw one through a passing taxi cab window, which Mom and Dad had to pay for. He also caused a neighbor boy to have to get stitches in his head. Though he had a few mischievous moments, his mama was very proud of him. Mom and Dad didn't have a lot of money, so Mom was always trying to find ways to save it. We rarely ate out for meals. She always made home-cooked meals. And though she was a good cook, hamburger seemed to be the meat of choice. You can make so many things with it: meatloaf, goulash, hamburger casseroles, hamburger pizza, etc. And of course, as Cathy mentioned, hamburgers, which turned out like meatballs. I remember that she could save every single leftover, even if it were just a very small amount, and then she would throw it away after it turned green. She helped me learn to bake at a very young age, and Cathy did mention the favorite chocolate chip cookies, where she only used half a bag of the chocolate chips. I loved cookies, but I really needed more chocolate chips. So when I moved out on my own, I swore I would never in my life use a half a bag of chocolate chips, no matter how poor I was. Ruby tried to can, freeze, and make everything she could so we could have good food all year round. She would can green beans, tomatoes, pickles, jams, jellies, and she'd freeze corn and other vegetables and a variety of fruit. She had a beautiful garden, and she also would utilize items from her mother's garden for putting things up. She went through a phase of making homemade ketchup because the tomatoes were so plentiful. We did not like this ketchup. Tony and I didn't. Cathy wasn't along yet. So she would try to trick us by putting it in a real ketchup bottle. Didn't work. She eventually gave that up. When the strawberries and blueberries were in, we would go early on a Saturday morning and pick them and bring them home and clean them up and make something good and sweet, like strawberry shortcake or blueberry pancakes or pie. She made an especially good strawberry rhubarb pie, and then she would freeze the leftovers for later. Another way to save money was to use an old wringer washer and hang everything out on the line as long as you could. She didn't want to use a dryer because electricity cost too much. During the 60s, she had a rough time. I don't remember a lot of specifics, but I do remember Dad praying for her a lot. She suffered some nervous breakdowns, and shock treatments seemed to be the norm at the time. Summer of 1970, we were having Sunday dinner as a family. Dad proceeded to talk about a stork coming to our house. I was only 11 and had no idea what he was talking about. Tony appeared to know as he was laughing at me. They finally told me that Mom was having a baby. I had been asking for a baby sister for so many years, and Mom would just laugh at me. I couldn't understand, why would she laugh at that request? After being told the news, I was so excited. And as my parents were very private people, they told us not to tell anyone. However, as soon as I was done eating, I went out to play with the neighborhood kids and I told them the news, as I could not stand holding it in. On November 28, 1970, my wish came true. I had a baby sister, Cathy Ellen. I helped name her, as her initials were now the same as mine. She was the cutest baby I'd ever seen. She was born on a Saturday, so when we went to church on Sunday without Mom, everybody asked where she was. Dad told him in the hospital, as she had just had a baby. What a shocker. Nobody knew she was pregnant. I went to school on Monday and I told my teacher, Mrs. Bowley, that I'd had a baby sister. She said, "Oh, so your cat had kittens." I almost got in trouble over that one because she didn't know we were expecting either. Mom was a great pie baker. She made tasty fruit pies and the best coconut cream pie ever. In 1975, Mom had prepared a wonderful home-cooked meal and topped it off with her coconut cream pie for the Norval Hayes ministry team that Tony was traveling with at the time. Norval commented that her pie was better than the pies he served in the restaurants that he owned. I'm sure she was very proud of herself. So Ruby was a great wife, a housekeeper, a mother, and a cook, and could manage on just a little bit of money. When she had Cathy, she decided to stay home to raise her and opened a daycare in her home. She now became a good businesswoman. She obtained her daycare license, planned the meals according to state guidelines to receive reimbursement, planned games, and schedule for the day. She did this for about 10 years. Ruby was a great seamstress, too. She used to purchase interestingly colorful polyester material to make herself dresses. She would also have enough material left over to make Cathy a little dress. Polyester was cheap and easy to wash and wear. And even though I thought this was funny, little Cathy did look cute in the matching dresses of Mom's. And the leftover material was given to her mother, who in turn made quilts, and I believe one of the lovely quilts is on the chair in the back with some dresses on it. Mom went to Grandma's a lot to dress chickens so we could have the best fried chicken ever. And I remember when my girls were little and they would go with us on the farm, they loved to pick eggs. And during her early 50s, Dad had lost his job. She was so worried about this, and I used to talk to her about having faith in God, as this is what she had taught me. I know she did a lot of praying and reading God's Word. Though she was concerned, they never went without. In her mid to late 50s, I started noticing some strange behavior, and at the time we didn't know what hit us, but later realized it was the beginning of the early onset Alzheimer's disease. She was 60 when we took her to the School of Medicine in Springfield to determine her diagnosis, and based on the battery of tests they performed, it was Alzheimer's. And this was the beginning of our family's long journey of caring for our mom. My dad, being the kind-hearted man that he was, had already been taking care of her and continued to do so. Being such a faith-filled man, he didn't talk to many about Mom's condition either, as he only wanted to allow positive, godly confessions to come out of his mouth. Cathy and I stepped up to the plate as she progressed with the disease. Dad and Cathy would share 3 nights, and I took the 7th night, as I had a full-time job and was trying to raise my own kids with my husband, Rob. We were assisting her with her activities like dressing, bathing, toileting, preparing meals. We even had to help with feeding, which got worse over time. I would provide extra assistance when Dad and Cathy needed time off, and I also helped Dad when she would fall. I worked in town, and he would go assist in helping her up. During that time, I was playing the piano for my church, and Mom and Dad really enjoyed hearing me sing and play as I practiced for the church services. We also dealt with the emotional issues that go along with this disease. She would go from one extreme to the other, laughing about life and the funny things that happen, to crying and not really knowing why. I finally called their pastor, John Monroe, and told him what was going on, as most people didn't notice. And Dad didn't want to tell anyone due to his faith and believed that someday she would be made whole. I felt my dad and our family needed help from the church. Mom was such a quiet person, and she followed Dad everywhere. Dad's good friend, Hack, also had a wife with the same condition and took care of her too, and I'm sure they leaned on each other a lot. During the holidays of 1998, we were all planning to go out of town and recommended that Dad put Mom in the nursing home for a couple of weeks so he could rest. Once he put her there, she stayed. Dad was relieved, but visited her every single day until he went home to be with the Lord on June 25th of '99. Mom's mind had declined so that she wasn't even aware he was gone. When we told her, she just responded sadly and said, "Oh, he did." Our youngest daughter, Brittany, and my dad were like 2 peas in a pod. Although she was very young, she helped out a lot with Mom and continued helping after we put Mom in the nursing home. She and I would go feed Mom when we could. Now Cathy and I tried to spend as much time with Mom as we could, but it was a relief that she was being cared for the way she was, as we were not able to do it. After our first grandson was born, Cathy, Audrey, and I went to visit Mom. Cathy and I had left the room, and shortly Audrey came out running and said, "You won't believe what Grandma said." "What?" She said, "Jesus is coming." Very clearly, even though the disease had progressed to the point she didn't talk. We had a lot of laughs with Mom, as she would do and say the funniest things. We had a lot of laughs with Mom, as she would do and say the funniest things. She repeated herself a lot, and we would answer the question again or laugh again. I learned a lot about this wicked disease that robbed my mother of her mind. I wanted to know how to act and what to say, and it was simple. Answer the question again, just as if it were the first time she asked it. I recall having a lot of heart-to-heart talks with Cathy about Mom and Dad and what had happened and how we didn't understand. We have mourned her loss for many years, but we've had a lot of laughs too. We wished sometimes we'd done things differently. We wished we could have realized sooner what was going on with Dad, and maybe he could have spent some more time with us. There's just a lot of things we don't understand. And although Dad needed help where Mom was concerned, he didn't complain once. I don't think I ever saw him cry in sadness over Mom, but I saw him laugh a lot. I'm guessing he cried in his quiet times with the Lord. When we found out a couple of weeks ago that Mom was losing weight and not eating as much as usual, we thought this could be her time. I saw her Monday. We scheduled a meeting with hospice on Wednesday. I had had a business meeting in Harrisburg on Wednesday and spent the night with Cathy. We kept close tabs with the nursing home and decided we should go on Wednesday, so I canceled my meeting. We spent the whole day on Wednesday with Mom. We sang, we prayed, we read the Bible, we cried, we laughed, we reminisced. We tried to get everybody to come and say goodbye, and if they couldn't be there, we would just talk with them on the phone. We apparently sang so loud the next door neighbor told us to turn the music down. Our brother was sad not to be able to be there, so we put him on the speakerphone for about 30 minutes, and the four of us talked. We went down memory lane while Mom listened. She was not responsive, but we knew she could hear us. Cathy and I assured her several times that we loved her so much, and it was okay to go, as we knew she would be in heaven with Jesus, and she would be whole again. We were also excited that she would see Dad again. We told her to say hi to Dad and for them to pray for us. Though my mom was very quiet and didn't preach as much as Dad, she taught me to be honest and forthright, to have a good work ethic, to be kind to others, and to help those in need, not to toot your own horn, but to be humble. And the funny thing is, I don't remember hearing her say those things a lot. She lived them, and I saw it. Actions do speak louder than words. We stayed with her until her last breath, and though we knew there was rejoicing in heaven, we cried. Though we knew she was whole again, we were still sad as another chapter in our lives had closed. I had thought about how she was there when we entered into the world, and that Cathy and I were glad to be able to be there when she left the world. I had displayed a poem in my mom's room at the nursing home during the time she was there, and I'm going to close with. It's called 10 Requests of Ruby. Please be patient with me. Remember, I am the helpless victim of an organic brain disease that is out of my control. Please talk to me. Even though I cannot always answer you, I can hear your voice and sometimes comprehend your words. Please be kind to me, for each day of my life is a long and desperate struggle. Your kindness may be the most special and important event of my day. Please consider my feelings, for they are still very much alive within me. Please treat me with dignity and respect, as I would have gladly treated you if you'd been in this bed. Please remember my past, for I was once a healthy, vibrant person full of life, love, and laughter, with abilities and intelligence. Please remember my present. I am a fearful person, loving wife, mother, grandmother, great-grandmother, aunt, sister, or a dear friend who misses my family and home very much. Please remember my future. Though it may seem bleak to you, I am always filled with the hope for tomorrow. Please pray for me, for I am a person who lingers in the mists that drift between time and eternity. Your presence may do more for me than any other outreach of compassion you could extend to me. Please love me and the gifts of love you give will be a blessing from which will fill both our lives with light forever.